we're continuing off from the Nintendo Direct, and I think the list that I had initially used didn't have a lot of didn't have all of the games that were shown.
Yeah.
So you're mentioning what game was
Project Triangle, something strategy. I didn't.
Project Triangle Strategy?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Project Triangle Strategy. That's going to be the working title.
Okay,
So,
because
but I think they're trying to they kind of use the same kind of language, like Octopath Traveler.
yeah,
So they're probably looking for
something
something like
weird.
that. Yeah.
I never played Octopath Traveler. It's one of those games that I just don't feel like paying $60 for when it was $60
Mhm.
because it looks like an RPG from the days where I would spend $40 for that type of game,
Mhm.
on PlayStation. But it looked
But
good.
I will say because I have Octopath Traveler, I haven't played it in a while, but I've played it. I played a good amount, I guess. With RPGs, even
Yeah,
10, 15 hours is not even a good amount. But it looks really good. Like it looks like a 16-bit game storybook in a way because it's like three-dimensional, but
but it's
everything's still
flat.
like in the flat
Characters are like flat.
16-bit kind of like look.
Yeah,
And it has a lot of voice acting and a lot of the main cutscenes. So a lot of voice actors are voiced do the voices of the characters,
yeah.
which is well done. So
Um,
that,
yeah. It's weird to me. Like, okay, Octopath Traveler. I have to
mhm.
play it, but it was kind of like, oh, it was on the Switch, and that was a Switch thing, right? And then it
Yeah.
did come to PC actually. Um, and I'm so confused about this game. I think it's going to be a good game. It looked a
Mhm.
lot like a new age Final Fantasy Tactics, and these games don't get made enough at this level. Where it's a professional team doing a whole,
Mhm.
and also with this kind of style. So it checks off a lot of things, that retro feel, the music, but it also allows you to actually control your character outside of battle, which is something I've always liked in like some games that like Shining Force is an old game that did that. But
Mhm.
these strategy games sometimes don't let you do that. Like it's all like battle or menu. This one
Mhm.
actually might have some exploration in between the battles. So that's kind of cool. Um, this game, like I said, scratching that Final Fantasy Tactics itch that people been dying for
Mhm.
another serious Final Fantasy Tactics games because the first Tactics was the benchmark, and then the sequels were, while on a gameplay perspective, I think they were good as well. The stories were a lot more kiddie. They were on the Game Boy Advance, and people didn't die as like, and it wasn't like the first game was war and death, and it was like demons and crazy things. And the,
Mhm.
the other games were like, oh, it's a bunch of Moogles and Chocobo, a bunch of fantasy, real Final Fantasy kind of cute animals and stuff. But they all had serious gameplay. Like it wasn't, all gameplay was still serious. Um, so this kind of goes back to that. My only thing is, I wonder why. I mean, it's the same art style as the Octopath or something, but I'm kind of
Mhm.
wondering why they didn't maybe go the route of creating another Final Fantasy Tactics, which,
Maybe they don't sell too well. Maybe I mean
but you gotta imagine that name behind that kind
that's
of
true.
game in this
But
age
then,
would push more than Project Triangle, whatever it's
I
gonna be
mean, I
called.
don't know the sales of Octopath Traveler. I don't know if that game, was did good for Square, but
Right. But
I
I'm
can
sure it
imagine.
didn't sell as well as the Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably
I'm
not.
trying. Yeah,
But
I wish
maybe it's just
you the
not
story
going to be
behind the
Final
game.
Fantasy in nature. Maybe that's why. I just
Yeah.
feel like this is obviously a Final Fantasy
Well,
inspired
But
thing.
Final Fantasy changes so much, though. You know what I mean? Like, look at the newest one. What is 15 or 16? The one that's coming out.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Like,
But all you gotta do is like because if you throw the word tactics in it, then you know what it is. It's
mhm,
like because all the Final Fantasy Tactics games, you can't mistake them for any other thing. You know exactly what they are. They are very similar to this game that was shown. Um, but I still like the heck out of it that they're making that. I just think it's
mhm,
a great, and I think a lot of people weren't so hyped about this Nintendo Direct, but I think it really showed a lot of interesting games that I think a lot of people were hoping for a new Pokemon
mhm.
remake because they want to play the same one for the third time, but um, people are hoping for like a Soul Silver remake, which is
Really?
already, yeah, which is I think it might have been rumored, which is already a remake of Soul
Mhm.
Silver, and then the third, like, because
Yeah. You know,
whatever.
they want the new graphics and everything. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'm not. I can't
And
upset the
Nintendo's no
Pokemon
stranger
art.
for going back to the old well. I mean, look at like
Right.
hey Pokemon Pikachu. Well, I don't know. I forgot the name of it, but
Hey, yeah, Pikachu. I know what
Eevee
what
and
it is.
Pikachu. Yeah, I don't
Let's
want.
go
I want
Eevee.
to
Let's
say
go
yeah.
Eevee.
Let's go Pokemon or something like that. You
And
know.
that's
So
like the third time of that region, right?
yeah, exactly. Like I don't even know. It looks old school, so I'm thinking like they probably have like all the old school Pokemon.
I
So
guess what they would do now, they have to make it. If they do a remake of Soul, it would have to be in the style of Sword and Shield now, like huge world kind of. Like,
mhm,
I don't know if you can make that and then go back to.
yeah. I mean,
That was
I haven't played like that game in
I
such a
haven't played
long
them
time.
either.
So I would probably imagine like if they had to like upres every not upres, but like have like the new modern graphical fidelity, it'd be really like a lot of work. So they probably don't want to put that much
Yeah.
effort into like
However, I'll
remake.
say the only reason I would say they probably would do that work
Mhm.
only is because of it's just their license to print money,
That's
right?
true.
They sell a Pokemon game, they're gonna recoup all of that cost. So it's not like
And, you know, we're coming up to 20 years, so like they know that a lot of people played it as kids are now
yeah.
adults and they have disposable income. So
Some of my friends are like the biggest on my Facebook and stuff. They're like,
mhm,
no Pokemon. Oh, who cares? This direct was useless. Like that's
mhm,
exactly what I like. This direct was just whack, nothing in it.
mhm,
So yeah, one of the biggest games now. It's not Nintendo exclusive, but they did announce it there. I said before was Legend of Mana,
mhm,
um, and they also announced that Saga Frontier would be on the Switch. Now these are this is like a dream come true for me
mhm,
because these are some old PlayStation games that honestly nowhere in my head did I think that they would choose these games to remaster because they weren't huge sellers. Like Legend of Mana wasn't not a great seller, but it wasn't like no one thinks of like oh Legend of Mana like that much, and nobody thinks of Saga Frontier. Like you probably don't even know what that is.
I've
But
seen that before. It's like is that a tactical game? It's like a
no,
Frontier?
it's definitely no. Saga
Oh,
Frontier is definitely. Uh, it's hard to explain what the Saga series is. It's really a spin-off of Final Fantasy two. So it's a
all
weird
right.
long
I've seen the cover of the game.
but but the Saga series is very weird. They kind of were they had RPGs that were like running parallel to Final Fantasy on Super Nintendo. They're made by Square. Even Romancing Saga 3 looks a lot like Final Fantasy 6 in terms of like character sprites and things. They look very similar. But Saga Frontier is like almost like the studio that was allowed to just do weird, stupid shit with RPGs.
Mhm,
So they really went in their own. Their games are very weird, almost obtuse, and sometimes very difficult to play. But I bought Saga Frontier like maybe I was like 12 or 13,
mhm.
and I just like me and some of my friends at the time we couldn't stop playing it. Like it had 7 adventures in one, and it just had a weird, quirky battle system. Had great music. And you could I could tell it wasn't it was it was very unfinished. It was like there was certain it was kind of broken in some areas.
Mhm.
But it was one of those games that you like. It was definitely a thing of its time, and it had to me has no place being remastered and coming back out. I just didn't see it happening. I saw it more likely for Legend of Mana because Mana is a bigger series for sure. You know, Secret of Mana is on the Nintendo Classic. You know, Super Nintendo Classic.
Mhm.
Uh, then you know, Legend Secret of Mana has been remade a bunch of times. Venture of Mana had phone games. They had a whole bunch of DS games. Mana is pretty decent series. It never really reached the height. They remade one of them as a Switch game. What was that big? Well, it wasn't just a Switch game. Something of Mana. I can't remember, but it came out last year.
Let me
Uh,
see. Mana.
it
Hmm.
was some, but it was a full on remake of basically what was Secret of Mana 2, which we never got in America.
Collection of Mana.
No, it well that did come out, but and Collection of Mana has the
Trials
second
of Mana.
Trials of Mana. Trials of Mana, which is a terrible name.
Hmm.
Terrible name. But Trials of Mana, which is also it was called Sienken Detsatsu 3 on, I don't know if you ever played on emulators, but it's one of the prettiest looking Super Nintendo games. It's gorgeous, and it's one of the best, supposedly one of the best Super Nintendo games, but we never got it over here. So the fact that Collection of Mana had it translated fully so you can play it in that Super Nintendo style on the Switch. I have Collection of Mana too, actually. I just never opened it yet. But I want to kind of do a Mana series thing one day eventually. But now that Legend of Mana is actually going to be there too, it's like, oh my God, I can play. Legend of Mana was so good for so many reasons. It was like, it had multiplayer in it, but they didn't tell you really. There was like, I remember one day, think of it like, let's say me and you both played Legend of Mana and you had your file, whatever. And there's a house in one of the first towns that's just there. And I never really bothered it. And one day I bothered and knocked on a door and it asked you to load a file. And come to find out, if you have a friend that plays the game, you can load up their character if they're there and you can both adventure together. And this is not even like advertised or something. And I was like, it was crazy. And there's like arenas, you can fight each other or you can just quest together. And so I was like, this is crazy. So like me and like Bandito and like Ray, we like had our characters. We had each different like styles of play and stuff. And it was like, and it was weird because I never played a Mana game, knowingly played it. I played a Mana game called Final Fantasy Adventure, but that was not, that was a Mana game really. But that was like the first Mana game I played, and it set the standard. Because everybody talks about Secret of Mana, but I don't like Secret of Mana. And I've tried to like Secret of Mana. I've played it so many times, and I can't get past a certain point because I just get bored and lost. To this day, because it's, if it made the Super Nintendo Classic, to me it's like, obviously a lot of people really like that game. I mean, there's only 20 games on that thing, and they really hit pretty much every niche on that Super Nintendo Classic.
Almost.
That's one of the
Chrono
games.
Trigger.
Well, yeah. That could be a whole nother thing going to games that are not included on these things.
I think we did though.
Yeah, you're right. We probably did. Chrono Trigger. Wow, I can't believe that's not on there.
Unbelievable.
Can't get them all, I guess. But anyway, so that and Saga Frontier. So those were two games that were announced there that really, the Legend of Mana one blew my mind. I just, no way I thought. I told one of my friends, I said, when they announced Saga Frontier months back, I said, there's a possibility. I said this in a text. I went back just to make sure I said it. I said, the floodgates are open. If they're going to remaster Saga Frontier, which has no right to be remastered, anything can happen. I said Legend of Mana, possibly. And then they announced it. I just I lost it. Couldn't believe it.
That's such a good feeling.
It's a great feeling. They both come out in April. And there hasn't been a moment like, these are like some games where I know I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to play. Like, I'm just going to play them. I really want to play them so bad. So I cannot wait.
I can tell. I can see.
Right? I'm excited for like a 20-year-old game.
Games are good, like if you enjoy the game and it has a certain quality and especially nostalgic. Yeah.
The music. I mean, like I told one of my friends, like when I told Ray, who is busy in the army and doing all this other crazy stuff, and I said, yo, they're remaking Saga Frontier. He said, I'm buying 3 copies. He said, I'm buying it on PC and I'm buying it on my phone so I can play it on my iPad and stuff too. Like that's how crazy he got. Then I told him Legend of Mana. He said like unfucking real. These are like the games that like, because he, other than, for him, he just plays like Overwatch and shooters, but he loves Final Fantasy VII. He loves these old RPGs, and he's, the new ones, they're either too realistic or too like, they don't have that. They're trying to blur the line of video game. Like this, it's like Final Fantasy 15. Yeah. I can't get into it.
Yeah, I feel like RPGs, like, even though I'm not the biggest RPG player in the world, but you can definitely see a shift in it, which is why I think games like, Octopath Traveler was really cool because, even, it's like that. Because I like just looking at it, and I just feel like when I look at Octopath Traveler, I just have this nostalgic feel. Like, it doesn't look like an old game, but it has a good classic 16-bit feel when I look at it, and then like it reminds me of like those RPGs, Chrono Trigger, Illusion of Gaia, stuff that I played.
And it's like you don't, and never as a kid did I look at some of these old RPGs and be like, "Oh, imagine if they had better realistic graphics." It was never like
Mhm.
that. You just looked at what it was, and you were like, you were in that world. Like everything looked like if you got teleported to the world, you'd become a sprite. Like
Mhm.
never, I would never think like, "Oh my god, I want to play this game with realistic graphics in first person." Or something like I never thought
I
of
mean,
that.
I definitely think it has to do with the number one, the time. I think as gamers, we had more imagination back then, and also too, like the games have great music, and you get immersed, like like reading a book almost. Like
So,
RPGs, a lot of reading, a lot of dialogue, and between all that coming together, it will immerse you. Like Chrono
certain
Trigger.
games, like there were certain games though I would look at and say like I wanted this game with better graphics. Like if I look at like a Metal Gear Solid 1 or something,
Hmm.
I could always say, okay, even though the Twin Snakes wasn't that great of a remake, but I could always look at that and say, man, if they remade this now, that would be like I would be down for that. But when it did come to RPGs, it was just different. Like Final Fantasy VII, I think was due for a remake, but some games
But they got
in
like
that
a
style,
got a whole overall overhaul because it's not even like the same type of game, like the same
right?
way, what I mean? So it's like almost like a different game in a way,
It
just
is, and
based
you're
off the
right,
story.
actually.
You know what I mean? So it's not even like directly like, okay, you have this mini cloud and you're going here,
Right.
So
It is a, and I haven't even played that yet, which is kind
I
of
have
crazy.
it, but I'm probably gonna play it maybe
I'm
at some
waiting
point.
till it comes on PC. I just been such a PC snob,
Mhm.
like, and this is kind of off topic, but one of the things I had to do to start playing games again was I
Mhm.
had to get rid of the FPS counter, the
Mhm.
frame per second counter. Being a being on PC, sometimes you'll be watching that while you're playing. Like, why do my frames dip? Why do my and then I have to go change settings to make sure I
Mhm.
get like consistent frame rate. And I was looking at a lot of people that play PC said they had that issue where
Mhm.
when they got their PC, they were hyped because everything was running better in games. But then you'd play a game and you test it and it wouldn't run perfectly. It'd run
Mhm.
60 a drop a frame, and then you'd like be like, "Oh, I'm not getting the best experience," and it makes you not want to play the game. That's what happened to me with Cyberpunk. I only
Mhm.
started playing it once I turned off the counter, and I said, "Let me focus on the game." And it's sad that that's what's
I
become
mean,
a
I can see how that can happen
as
because you
you
spend so much time building your PC, changing specifications. Like you're very involved in the process of creating that PC. So when it's not running correctly, now you're like, okay, what's going on? It's like no different than a car.
it's
You
almost
build a
like testing
car.
a car. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like testing a car and that you built yourself or something, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, it's running great, and oh shoot, if it doesn't, then
Yeah.
I've gone into this computer and done so many things, and I built it to be a gaming computer, and besides, like I do play a lot of Overwatch stuff, but I have so many games that like
Hmm.
5 years ago, and I'm not even gonna just blame it on being busy, but there was a time where I would have been playing these games. If I was strictly still a console gamer, I'd
Hmm.
probably be playing a lot more games. I'm not even gonna lie,
Hmm.
because before I got this PC, I was still playing stuff like I played Kingdom Hearts 2 fully back
Hmm.
then. And I spent 30, 40 hours on this. I
Wow.
still had a job. I had a girlfriend at the time. I had things to do. I had rent to pay, and I still played these games. I played when we had an apartment together. I
Hmm.
was still playing a lot of games. The only thing that's changed is I got a PC, and all of a sudden, my desire to play games has been replaced with a desire to see my games
The
running
best
at some
quality.
full capacity. And it's kind of sad. I had to turn off the counter.
I mean,
I had
listen, isn't there like a limit to certain games? Like, for example, if you're playing like Sonic Adventure, like like there's a kind of like a ceiling to hit. You know what I mean? Where you're not
what
gonna
in terms of what my performance, the
performance,
performance.
yeah. Because like let's say, let's say you're playing like an old game, right? Is Does it still matter that much when it's an old game?
No, because well, obviously those games will run at max, but then it's almost like, haha, my game can do this. Now on to the next one. I want to find a game that I struggle to run, and then and
Hmm.
then it's almost like it's no challenge with the game is like Sonic because I have Sonic Adventure on
Hmm.
PC. Man, that game did not age well. It's so crazy to think that, but just it doesn't look terrible. But there's some things in it that you're like,
I can
ugh,
imagine. Well,
ugh.
at least has an amazing soundtrack, right? We can say it's one of the best video game soundtracks ever. right?
Those haven't aged well either.
Uh,
Oh
Here I
god!
come, tougher than the rest of them, the best of them.
All right, this is the end of this podcast. But yeah, like it's gaming. I really, part of me really wants to get back into it. I
Mhm.
like games, and I really want to play. I have so many games, and it's a little overwhelming too, the amount of games I have now. Especially, it's one thing too on PC; they're all there, just staring you at the face.
Mhm.
So you're like, I don't know. Do I play Devil May Cry 5? Do I play Tomb Raider? Do I play Cyberpunk? Do I play Valkyria Chronicles 4? Do I play Final Fantasy 15? This just and all in a click away.
Well, I will say something like I've been feeling that kind of like that lately, but I've been trying out different things. Like I have Xbox Game Pass for Xbox
Another
One,
nightmare. Go ahead.
and that's amazing to see so many games. But the only thing with that is that you have to make sure that you have space on your hard drive, and then you also have to download them. Which isn't too bad, but you have a whole bunch of games you have to download or whatever. But sometimes you're just overwhelmed with the amount of games you can play. You don't even know where to start. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then also too, I might get into this a little bit more in the next podcast. But I've been playing Amazon Luna, and in case you don't know what Amazon Luna is, it's pretty much Amazon's version or a platform similar to Google Stadia. So it's
Mm-hmm.
all streaming, and
There's
you
a
pay
lot
a.
of those actually.
Mhm. I think they're gonna become. I think
I mean,
next 10 years.
X Cloud, right?
XCloud, yeah, XCloud.
Nvidia has one.
Hmm.
Something like. But go ahead. And I never even heard of this Amazon one now till you told me.
Yeah, so I just heard you know what it is? I signed up for like the beta or like a trial run or something like that like a while ago, and they just had sent me an email saying that I'm in the program or whatever. So I had bought a Amazon controller. I think, do I have it here? Let me see it. That's not it. Oh, here it is. Thanks. All right, so over here, this is the Amazon Luna controller. Your standard controller, you know what I mean?
I
Um,
mean, is Nintendo suing them, or
no.
it looks a lot like a Switch Pro controller?
Yeah, it does look like Switch Pro in a way, but
I guess I haven't
it's
really
like
seen a Switch Pro controller,
that.
but
Yeah, but I mean, the Switch Pro, I have one right here. You can tell the similarities. Like I'm doing a review on it as well. And I just noticed that as well. Like they look
they look
very similar.
exactly the fucking same.
Actually, let me just hold it better. Yeah, so they look pretty similar.
Bro, they look
I feel like it has PS4 and
okay. I guess,
control triggers and stuff like that, but it's very very similar. It's
but I mean, at
comfortable.
this point, it's like
That's a standard
how
controller now
much
at this
different
point.
can you make a controller at this point
Exactly. I
without
think this
being
is pretty much
complicated?
like the controller we're gonna have for
Right.
probably pretty much forever. But it was actually pretty cool because all you need is your Fire Stick to play. Like you have your Fire Stick, you download it to your Fire Stick and play it there. And then they have a small collection of games. It's not a lot. They have like Sonic. What is it? The Sonic. The what is it called? Sonic Mania. Yeah, Sonic Mania. River City Girls. A lot of the Shantae games. But I think they're probably the best game that I played on that so far, or the most interesting that I played on so far was Control. Control
I play
is
Control.
you play Control? Yeah, I'm about to play it right now. That's why I probably want to talk
Wait,
about this
have
a
you
little bit.
played it yet?
I'm in the middle of it. Like I've only just played a couple of minutes of
I beat
like
like the
the.
first boss. I played a pretty decent amount.
Mhm,
One of those games that really crushes your PC in terms of ratings and stuff.
mhm,
Really fun game.
mhm.
I got game of the year and all this stuff, and I started
I
playing
heard it
it.
didn't sell that well, right?
I don't know if it sold very well,
Yeah.
but or it might have. I don't know, but I know it's pretty good. But
Mhm.
so it's free, right? It was free on the PlayStation.
Well, it's not free. It was free on PlayStation at some point. But this is part of like the Amazon Luna's
Oh, okay, okay, all
this.
right.
So it's like the service is like $6.99 a month. So I was playing that, and I'm not gonna lie. Number one, you do need a good internet connection. If your internet connection is just a little bit slow, like you're gonna have some issues. Like initially, I was playing and my internet was kind of crappy, and it was just like bugging out. Like it couldn't really play. It kept on skipping and everything. So I had to call Verizon to improve it or to get a new router. And then now it plays a little bit better now. And it's just amazing to see like a full-fledged 3D game with a whole bunch of details just streaming, on your television, and you got little hiccups here and there, but it's just amazing just to see it there. Like it's just like to me when it works, you're just amazed.
I think streaming in general, the idea of it is kind of crazy because I won't lie. Like I one time figured out, I don't know, I guess I always leave my PC like in rest mode, but sometimes I leave it on, whatever. So one time I was at work and I opened up my laptop and I had Steam on my phone too.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh, you can Steam link from your computer here. And I
Mhm.
was like, what? And so I tried it and I was playing Final Fantasy X on my phone,
Wow.
streaming, and it played
Oh,
great.
oh
It was,
wow.
yeah, like it was streaming, so I can play anything
Mhm.
from my laptop to my phone. Now, Steam also has if you have your Steam controller, you
Mhm.
can just play. You put your stand up and play. You can play whatever, and it played great. It not, obviously there's lag,
Yeah, of course. I
but
mean,
the
it's not.
fact that because normally Steam only connected on your network, your home network,
Mhm.
so you had to be on your route. But I was at work, and I said, "Wait a minute, what?" And I started losing it. Cause this said all the possibilities of now moral reasons for me not to play. Like no
Mhm.
excuses, right? Like I can't
Yeah.
have excuses. But yeah, no, streaming it's gonna be, give it 30
It's
years. It's gonna
yeah,
be
it's
the
gonna be
thing.
standard. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be standard. Like
It's gonna be
like.
so good. There's no point in, people will still have their PCs and stuff,
But you know
but
what it is though? Like as the old gamer in me, because we come from a generation, the 8-bit
you want
generation,
the
where
physical.
we have physical everything. We owned everything. You know what I mean? Like it was
I
VHS,
am
DVDs, or whatever.
I am
And
scared for
I
my Steam collection when Steam is like, we are no longer, and it's just everything I bought gone.
exactly. You know what I mean? So that's the
That's
only
very
scary
much a
thing.
possibility. I mean, I've seen
You
it
know.
with iPhone games. I have an iPhone graveyard of
Hmm.
games because they don't. Once the game developer stops supporting whatever iOS update,
Hmm.
like this might work great with iOS 8, but it's not going to work with iOS 9, and we don't feel like updating it, and it don't work. And then a lot of times Apple will be like, "Does this game work? Okay, we'll take it off the store."
Hmm.
Or but you can still see a list of your games unless the game was erased from the App Store, which is usually like a legal thing.
Hmm.
But you can still see a lot of games that are still there that you can't play. It's so many games. I'm talking. There was a Castlevania puzzle game, the Symphony
Hmm.
of Night puzzle game on the iPhone. Can't play it. There was a Metal Gear Solid 4 on the iPhone. None of these
Yeah.
things, they're
I mean,
there, but they're in that graveyard. You can never play these things.
and it's kind of like the standard the industry is moving to, which I understand for convenience, but it does suck, when you do enjoy something and then, it could be like just modified or gone without even you knowing it. I remember you told me a story a couple of years
God,
ago. You had a Castlevania collection on your iTunes, and then this is not even streaming. This is just like stuff you downloaded, and when they I
no,
guess lost the rights, they just removed it from your collection.
um, shit, what was that?
It was
Well,
Castlevania,
okay.
right?
Well, let's not even. Let's talk. One game we could talk about is this is okay. Like one of the games that's really good that you can't play unless you have a Wii is Castlevania Rebirth. It's
Hmm.
one of those, and Contra Rebirth. These are games. These are real games that were really good, unique things that because they were only downloadable, that's the only way you can play them. Now mention that you can't even download Wii games anymore because the Wii
Hmm.
thing is all. Those games are lost.
Who
Now,
owned them? I mean, like they can
Konami
release.
does.
Yeah, so they can release them when they want, but they
They
just
could,
haven't, right?
but there's, and like you said, there's no physical copy of it or
Hmm.
something, But let's say, to your point, there were games like similar to games on, like you said, on the iPhone. Um, I can't remember what game it was, um, but I remember Sega did something where they took away. I bought. No, well, this is a good thing. On Xbox 360,
Hmm.
when I bought Golden Axe. I bought
Golden.
Golden Axe. Yeah, I bought the
Hmm.
original Golden Axe. They had like a Sega Genesis collection or something,
Hmm.
and they got rid of the collection. And so when I tried to fire up the game, even though I purchased this game, it was always in demo mode, and there was no
Hmm.
way to buy it.
You know what? That happened to me too with 360. I
And
had
I'm
Pac-Man Live. What was it? What was it?
yeah, it
It was
might have
Pac-Man
been.
Live, right? Yeah, Pac-Man Live. Like I had bought the game, and then something happened. I don't know how something happened to my account or whatever like that. But then when I tried to download it again, it wouldn't let me download it. And I'm like, yo, I have the game. I have trophies from the game. Why aren't you letting me download this game?
I couldn't. I literally nothing, and nothing happened to my account. I
Hmm.
just, I just, either I moved to another Xbox or something like that or whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember I bought because I like Golden Axe or whatever. It's one of my favorite games. I was like, oh yeah, I remember buying this. So let me just it's just it wouldn't let it wouldn't let me purchase it, but it was still like in it. I could download it because it was in something I had purchased before or something like
Hmm.
that. But it wouldn't let like I couldn't play the full game.
Hmm.
And I said that I was like, well, that's stupid. But that's very I mean, literally they say when you buy these games digitally, you are literally buying a license to
Yeah.
play the game, and the license can be taken away
Revoked. Yeah, it could be revoked
at
at
any
any time.
time if the
Like
developer
like
feels a reason.
like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I think I had also on 360. I don't know if I can play
Oh
that now.
yeah, that
You know.
you probably. I mean, that game's not as hard to access these days, but still,
Hmm.
there's some. Actually, it might be, but like there's for whatever reason there was DLC in Marvel's Capcom 3 that was like
Hmm.
one of Magneto's costumes offended like Russia or something,
Hmm.
so they had to strip that out. Um, but like, and if you bought it or something and you wanted to re-download it at some point, you couldn't. They were
So
like, you have to download this now before it's gone because
mhm.
once it's gone, it's gone.
It's on, yeah. So it's like, this is the way the industry is moving, and I think us as being the people who grow up with like streaming, they'll probably get used to it. It probably won't bother them, but I know for us, people like us, it
Mhm.
bothers us a lot because we're so used to owning our stuff and having control in the way of when we want to play it, how we're gonna play it, and things like that. But I think it's just changing generations where they're going to be used to being streaming. Like, well, they take it away whenever they want, but it kind of sucks. And I
Yeah,
do appreciate people who preserve video games. Like, I know there's always going to be people out there, somewhere or another. They're going to find ways to preserve games to make sure that at least it's playable in some fashion,
yeah.
form, or way.
Somebody is already has like a whole collection just of, and I mean that's part of the cool thing. I mean, it's not the same, but it's a cool thing. Why? Oh, this is something crazy too.
Hmm.
I know we're getting deep into this, but this will be right up your alley.
Which one?
So you know how they always release like ROMs and shit
Yeah.
on the internet, right? And it's always like, so that's a good preservation. You can't find them all nowadays, but somebody has a whole set of ROMs out there, right?
Hmm.
But speaking of that, and this is before we get end this because we've been on for a while. Did you see about the dinosaur planet? So
they released the beta.
N64 ROM is out there.
Really? Wow.
I've seen so like dinosaur like the game
Yeah, of
people,
course.
right?
It became the Star Fox.
That yeah, so they released. I was watching gameplay. Somebody had the code of it or whatever,
Hmm.
and it looked. Not, I don't know how far much done
I
how
think it was pretty
finished it
much
was,
done.
but it
'Cause I
looks
remember,
pretty. It looks
I,
pretty
I,
finished.
I remember
Voice
because
lines
back
in
then,
there.
really,
There's voice in there. The
like English
menus
voice
are
acting.
there. English voice acting.
Wow.
Not bad. It's not bad voice acting either. Um, It really, I won't lie. If that game came out on N64, I would have probably bought it because it really looked like Zelda. It looked like a Zelda game. Um, it looked pretty cool. It looked really involved. Like it looked for an N64 game. It looked really good.
I'm not gonna lie, that was one of my most anticipated games because back then I was following video games like news like crazy, and I
Yeah,
was really a big stan for Rare back in the day because they made such great games on
and
N64. Like,
I
you
won't
know,
lie. It's a real shame that turned into what it did. Not
yeah.
that game was bad. I didn't really like. I played a little
But you
bit,
know whose
but
fault that is, right? It's Miyamoto. Miyamoto one day he walked in the office and he looked at it and says, "Oh, he looks like Star
and I
Fox."
won't
He turns to Star Fox.
lie. The main character, when you see him, it looks just like Fox. So I can see Miyamoto being like, "Let's make more money,
Yeah, but you
whatever."
know what? I think for me, like, because honestly, I was anticipating that game for so long, for
It
years, and then when I played it as Star Fox Adventures, I'm not gonna lie, it disappointed me as a Star
it
Fox game, and just the whole I feel like we lost so much because we lost an original IP, and I feel like Star Fox thing it felt tacked on. Like they had like
it
early
was.
missions, and
Go to
that was
YouTube
tacked on. Mm-hmm.
when you get it. Like after this, just check out. I saw someone playing like the whole intro hour, whatever, and uh, it it looked like a good game. It looked like a really good game
I'm
that
sure it's gonna be.
should
Yeah.
have been. And I'm not the rare guy like you are. I know you're a big
Mm-hmm.
rare guy.
Yeah.
But this looked like if this came out and I saw somebody
It
playing
would have
it,
been like 9,
I would
9,
have
9,
bought it.
9, 10, 10, 10.
Well, I would at least. I don't know for sure, but
I
I
feel like
know.
because Rare had a good streak back then, bro. Perfect
Yeah,
Dark.
Jeff
You know,
Fox Gemini is overrated. But anyway,
mm.
so all I know is that, and they had a good streak, but like Donkey Kong 64 wasn't like the best game ever. It was
Yeah,
that was not
that's
that.
funny. That's the only one I haven't played yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I played it, and but Banjo Kazooie and all that stuff was good. But this really looked like, okay. They literally said, okay, let's do our take on Zelda.
Mhm.
At least from what I've seen.
Yeah,
I didn't watch the whole thing,
yeah, I mean,
but
if you played, Sonic Adventure, Star Fox Adventures, it's definitely a
like a Zelda
Zelda
inspired.
clone. You know what
This
I mean?
one, so yeah, but there's something so much more authentic about it being made for the N64. So
Mhm.
it really looked like a Link, Link, not Link, Ocarina of Time.
Okay,
It looked
time.
like that. But I was so much more interested in watching this version of the game than any of the GameCube one. Even
Mhm.
though that one looks great graphically and stuff, but this one looked like this is what this was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It feels like it. It feels like a really good product that really unfortunately got caught up in something really sad.
That's
It
probably
will
one.
make you upset. I think watching it
No,
will make you very
no, no.
upset.
I was already upset. Trust me. For a long time, I was already upset because,
You
like I
were
said, I've been
really
looking
upset.
forward to the game. The screenshots I used to see were amazing, and when they turned to a Star Fox game, I'm like, this has nothing to do with Star Fox. You know what I mean? Like
I,
this,
I,
the whole
I,
thing just bothered me.
I
You
really
know,
think you'll have a.
I'll look
I
for
want to
the
see,
source code,
look at
and
it, and then I want to hear what you have to say about it.
they also, it's funny. Speaking of release source code, because I'll definitely do that. They also released a source code for a remake of
Of
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye,
Yeah, it was supposed to
which
be
was
released,
pretty
but
much
because of the
done too.
rights, yeah, it was done. I think it was
It
completely.
was pretty much finished. And I looked at that and said, damn, now I can see what these guns are supposed to look like. One of the guns looked like a pencil, like a
Uh,
long pencil thing. And I was like, oh, this is what it really. And it's so crazy and that looked like even looking at it now, it looked
mhm,
impressive. Like even
yeah.
though this was coming out 10 years ago, supposed to, and it's kind of a shame. Like it's kind of crazy to get something so far
Hmm.
finished and not have it released. And I
You
mean
know,
that's happens quite a bit.
I think they definitely James. Whoever owns the bond license needs to do something where they can try to work something out
Repurchase that for
because
something, re-release
because
that.
first off, James Bond is having issues selling their own movies right now. They can't find anybody to buy their
Okay.
latest James Bond movie, and I think that's probably going to hurt the brand. But I think they definitely should work something out in terms of like I'm sure there's so many rights involved, the music, the characters, the actors. So it's
Yeah,
probably much more complicated than even I think.
it's probably
You know,
not happening.
yeah.
But
But
never say never with games, I
yeah,
guess.
never say never. Sometimes you never know with games, but
Yeah.
especially with the rights, that's why like license stuff sometimes like is rough. You know what I mean?
Just
Like
got to
sometimes,
throw a bit of more money at it. That's all.
yeah, exactly. Even like some like basketball games. Basketball games aren't gonna be really re-released like that because now you have contracts with like players, athletes. Unless you want to get a game that's kind of like stripped down to like generic characters. You know what I mean? Like think about some of the fun games that you used to play in the past. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So this is one of those things that can't be helped. But you know what? We've been running a little bit long.
Yeah.
Let's end it right now. Any last words?
Um. No.
All
I
right,
got no
same
answer.
here. Kind of good to go. I'm definitely gonna play more Amazon Luna, and I'll definitely
Yeah, let us
play more
know more.
Control.
I'm gonna try and play games
Yeah, me
again.
too.
Let's
And
not let's not wait 2 months to do our next one.
definitely, I just it's just like an unexpected like what is it called break.
Or
It was just
yeah,
like the holiday season, and after
yeah. No, it was.
and
I'm broken shit. So I didn't
mhm.
really. I wasn't in the mood to podcast anyway. I won't be.
Yeah, I think now we gotta, we're getting our groove back. So
We'll get our groove
uh,
back.
We always get our groove back.
Stella, we get our groove back.
Definitely. But I thank you guys so much for listening to this AI.
Bye.
So the ABG, the AB generation. I am bugging today.
No, it's because we've been on for a long time. That's why.
But the 8BG cast. If you guys like this video and others on our channels, like, subscribe, support us. It helps out a lot. And thank you for those who do listen and chime in. Much appreciated. This is Steve.
Sterl.
The 8BG generation, and we're out.
Adios.
Take care.